Hey guys, welcome back to another review. Today we're doing a ScaleTrains 8500 horsepower gas turbine electric, also known as the GTEL, that's GTEL. Uh, this is a second generation of the GTELs. The first one was a single unit with a fuel tanker, tender, whatever you want to call it, that it towed behind it. And the reason being, the originals were, like I said, a one-piece unit with the auxiliary tender. But the reason they had an auxiliary tender was because the locomotive used so much of the fuel that an onboard one was just impractical. I mean, it burns through it like in minutes. So, originally, the first units came out, the single units, way back in the early 1950s. Excuse me. And it was a product. Let me get my facts straight here. Was General Electric and where's the other? Where's that at? General Electric and Alco, American Locomotive Company. Okay. And that, well, I take that back. The demo unit came out in 1949, but the actual production ones came out from 1950 on. Okay. And they basically were the initial units were a 4,500 horsepower unit, which, if you think about it, that was in the first generation diesel era. Okay. If you saw a locomotive that did 1,500, that was top of the line. Okay. And most units were 1,000 or less, but they had the multi-unit capability. Well, at the time when the original units came out, they said, well, we can just have one unit on here and it does the work of 4 or 5, depending on what it is, of course. So it made sense to do that. And the fuel that it used, because it takes a special fuel blend that's actually a byproduct of the process for making gasoline and diesel. So they were able to buy that relatively cheap, and when they used that fuel, like I said, it just made more sense than to go out and buy, like I said, 4 or 5 F units as opposed to just one of those. And as the years went on, they saw the success rate of it. So they came out with what was essentially the second generation of these units, which is a 2-piece locomotive with a tender. Okay. The first unit is called the control cab. Now it has a standard diesel electric power plant, which basically, is, and it's, as you would think, it's the brains of the unit. You can't run the B unit without the A unit. Okay, it's not going to work. But you can run the A unit without the B unit. Okay, but that was rare, if ever, that they were separated. They considered it to be one unit, so they ran it all together. So you have your A unit, and when it would be in, say, a yard situation where it's going to hook up to a train, the A unit would be the only thing that would be powered. Now, could it pull a train without the B unit running? Yeah, it won't be as long, but yeah, it could technically pull a train. I mean, it operates the same as any other locomotive does. So whatever one of those with, the power rating for that particular, unit would be, that's what they can pull. But they, like I said, they don't run it separately. So that unit is just more or less, it just shuffles the whole train or the rest of it, of its unit around and hooks on. And then once it's hooked on, we power up the B unit. Okay, so so they brought these out and continued production. I think there was, I don't know if 28 was the last one or not, but they ran these all the way through December of 1969. And the reason they stopped, okay, was a couple things. One, we're already in, say, the middle of second generation diesels, okay, at that time, which are getting more horsepower, they're running more efficiently, and, so, you're averaging, I think, I want to say the SD40s were either out or coming out very shortly. So if anybody's familiar with, the horsepower for an SD40, that's pretty good, and they're all 3-axle diesels, or 6-axle, I should say, 6-axle diesels. And so they're running pretty efficiently. Well, that was one thing. So it was getting it, and the fuel was getting more expensive that they used. It was almost like a sludge in its natural state. So it had to be heated in the tender before it could be used in, the turbine. So, like I said, and it got more expensive, and then the operating costs, maintenance, whatever, because you may not realize it, but you will once I start this unit up. The B unit is in essence a jet engine, okay? It doesn't use JP4 or JP8 or, any kind of jet fuel, but it operates on almost the same principles, okay? And once you hear it start up, you will understand that it is a jet engine. These units, when they started producing these, were 8,500 horsepower. Now think about that. Even today's modern diesels, the most you can get is what, 48, 4,400 in that area. So it's at least 2 of those, maybe more or slightly more in itself. So you could have one of these units, and as long as you had the fuel, you're good to go. But another thing that did kind of limit it was the noise factor, okay? Because you have most places, would started enacting noise ordinances, and you can't have a jet engine come screaming through your yard at 2, 3 in the morning, whatever, and waking everybody up. So they were restricted to, let's say, the Great Plains or out in the desert somewhere. Tehachapi Loop. There's lots of videos of these things running the Tehachapi Loop out there in California. And they're great for that, okay? Long distances, or even, like I said, long trains, I mean, this thing can pull stuff that's miles long and not even breathe hard about it. They were that good and that efficient. But like I said, all these factors came into play, and the UP just said, well, it was nice while it lasted. So they got retired before 1970, and there are at least two that I know of that are still in existence. I believe one is number 26, and I can't think of the name or the number of the other one off the top of my head. But those but there are still two that are still in existence. I think one was cosmetically restored, if nothing else, and the other one, I'm not certain what its fate is as of right now. So, with that being said, I think we should start this baby up and see what it looks like. Now, you have 3 decoders in one of these. Now, this is a factory issue one, okay? These are factory ESU lock sound 5, and there's 3 decoders in these units. Now, ScaleTrains came out with 2 versions, okay? Usually their 2 versions of any locomotive is they have an operator, which is less details, and they have the rivet counter, which is the cream of the crop. Well, these models only came out with the rivet counter, but then they also upgraded it to the museum quality. Now, anybody's familiar with ScaleTrains, they know museum quality ones are mucho dinero, but they're also supposedly better, more features or more detail. Okay, so the big difference is, now this is the rivet counter version. Okay, I wasn't willing at the time when I bought this to spend the extra $200 to get the museum quality. I just didn't see a point. So the museum quality one, if you look, the doors on the B unit would be open. You would be able to see the turbine inside. I don't know if you see the generator. You might see the generator too. I forget if that's exactly what it was, but I know those 2 doors were open. And on the rear there, that silver piece, that is the exhaust port for the turbine. And on the museum piece, the turbine spins. While, when the unit starts up, the turbine starts spinning, and you can see the blades, spinning inside, which sounds cool. And if you have it parked somewhere, and somebody can look down and say, "Oh wow, that's cool." But again, if you're operating it, how often are you going to see that? You're not. So those being the majority of the differences, I just couldn't justify in my mind spending another $200. Okay. I like the unit. The unit runs good. It's a little finicky on track, so operating wise, I'm not sold totally about it. But looks wise, sound wise, you can't beat this. So with that being said, let's go and take a little bit closer look. We will switch cameras here. So bear with me a second. And there we go. So we have move up a little bit. We have the unit here, and it's obviously turned off. I have the power applied to it. It's ready to go. So as always with lock sound, to start it, you do it in their version of an extended startup is always F8. So we'll press F8. and that will start up the diesel part of the locomotive. And it's pretty much what you would expect out of a lock sound. Okay, so we have a headlight, and we also have marker lights, as you see there. Now those number boards are lit. I realize it's kind of tough to see, but those number boards are lit, and you can't, now you see that those are lit white, the marker lights. You can change the colors just by pressing F6, which is the colors for that, and turn them off, and now they're back on. Okay, so you have a white, a red, and a green. Anybody who knows what they are, that's what we got. Okay. Now the reason why there is a third, let me shut this down for now. Okay, so the reason why there is a third DCC receiver that's in the tender is a backup light. Let me get back to showing you. Oh, that's the wrong one. Hang on. I think I know how to do this by now. Oop, I still don't know how to do this, so we'll try this again. There we go. Well, we almost had it right. There we go. Now we're good. All right, so if you look at this, the back of the A unit and the back of the B unit, there are no backup lights. Okay, but on the tender, there is a backup light. And the only way that would work, because they're not actually MU'd together, would be to put another DCC decoder back there, and they're all on the same number. So I have this set to number 28 when I programmed it, and I had to program all three at the same time on the programming track. So they all respond together. But the B unit has different functions than the A unit because the A unit doesn't have a turbine, but the B unit does. And neither one of them have a backup light, but the tender does. So when you hit reverse, the tender light comes on and the headlights go off. Okay, so now we'll start that back up again. Okay, and so now we've ran through what you would see as normal functions for a DCC locomotive. Now the fun part. So F3 is designated as the turbine. And if you operate this, okay, and you don't have the turbine turned on, it will still operate. You know, it'll run along tracks, no problem. But the manufacturer for for lock sound decided that the A unit has X amount of power, and then you add the B unit, and it has a lot more power. So if you run it at, say, 25, okay, on your speed steps, it's going to go faster once you activate the B unit. If you don't activate the B unit, it'll go at a certain speed, but it will go markedly faster if you activate the B unit, which is kind of neat because that's how it would be in real life. So, without further ado, and I know everybody wants to hear this thing because I've been talking about So let's shut down the A unit. We'll do F8 again. Okay, we'll wait for that to totally stop. Okay, there it goes. Now we'll do F3, which is the turbine in the B unit. And now you'll see what I'm saying about a jet engine. Okay, we'll turn that off. Now you can see what I'm talking about. And I've taken this to train clubs, and you will not believe the head turning that comes around when this thing goes around the track and they hear that jet turbine. That's unique. Okay. So what other functions does this have? Well, I honestly, that's all I've ever used. Other than the horn and the bell. So, so F4 is supposed to be a dynamic brake. Like I said, never used that. Nighttime mode, never used it. The class lights we've done. F7 is a headlight dimmer. Let's see. F9 is a coupler clank. F11 is a sanding valve, and F12 is a short air let-off. And that's it. So really, there's not a lot extra. There are some extras that you can do function-wise. But really, the what I have shown up until this point is all you're really going to use. So there is no grade crossing ones, and honestly, I haven't used a grade crossing even on my Broadway limited models. It's because it varies between locomotives. Okay, but yeah, overall it works really well as far as that goes. Now, like I said, the trucks can be a little bit finicky with trak. Almost reminds me of a steam locomotive. The way those will find errors in your track work. But these trucks, they're really fixed, and there's very little play, if at all, in them. And it can be a little bit finicky around corners. Now, if you have big, wide sweeping corners, you should be okay with something like this, and it won't work well, or will work better than something like mine, which has got 22-inch radius curves, which it should work, but stuff happens, I guess. But yeah, this is overall it's a pretty nice unit. And if you can find one somewhere at a good price, I'd recommend getting it. Now I know I bought this one. This is one of the first runs that ScaleTrains had of it, or maybe it was the first run. Back in, I want to say it was either 16 or 17 that I bought this. My first real major investment from ScaleTrains. They have released it, I want to say, in the past 2-3 years. This is 2025, we're recording this. So it was sometime after COVID. Okay, that I can tell you for sure, but I don't remember exactly when. I want to say it was 22 or 23 that they re-released it. Okay, with different numbers. But yeah, that's now if did it make it any better? Don't know. But overall, it's a nice unit. I mean, and not being museum quality, I mean, it does turn heads. Okay, and like I said, for the extra 200 bucks to have doors that open and look inside and see a turbine and watch a fan blade that, or have a fan blade that I'll never see operate, I just couldn't justify it in my mind uh, to spend the extra 200 bucks. But that's it. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this. Hope you learned something. If you did, great. If not, well, I tried. Anyway, that's all I got for you today. Be sure to like, share, subscribe. And if you have any questions or comments, make sure you leave them down below. And I'll catch you next time. So you guys have a great day. Take care.